Clara Barton, the Angel of the Battlefield. Introduction. Guns cracked and cannons boomed through the suffocating summer air of Virginia. Beneath that noise was a softer, but much more terrifying sound. Wounded and dying men moaned or cried out for help. However, in the chaos of the battlefield, no one replied to their cries. Through the smoke came an unbelievable sight. A small woman wearing a modest dress and carrying armholes of bandages. A Union commander stopped her before she could reach the wounded soldiers. "This is no place for a woman," he shouted. The woman looked the officer right in the eye and handed him a letter. The letter is signed by Surgeon General William A. Hammond, the nation's top doctor, authorized Clara Barton to visit battlefields and tend to sick and wounded soldiers. As soon as he read the name Clara Barton, the commander's eyes went wide, and he bowed in apology. Without a word, the woman made her way toward the injured soldiers. The angel of the battlefield had arrived. Clara's childhood. Clara Barton was the baby tour of her family. When she was born on December 25, 1821, in Oxford, Massachusetts, her four siblings were already teenagers. They adored their little sister and taught her everything from reading to riding a horse. She quickly learned how to work on the family farm. Clara was very smart, but she was also very shy. Her parents thought boarding school might help her come out of her shell. School was traumatic for Clara. She was so terrified of speaking in front of strangers that she became ill. Her parents quickly brought her home. When Clara was 11, something happened that changed her life forever. Her favorite brother, David, was helping building a barn when he fell off the roof. His injuries were very serious. For over 2 years, Clara stayed at his bedside until he fully recovered. She never forgot how purposeful caring for him felt. Early jobs. When Clara grew up, she knew she wanted to work, but in the 1800s, women weren't allowed to do many jobs. One of the few careers they could have was to teach. After studying in one-room schoolhouse in Oxford, Massachusetts, Clara took a job in Bordentown, New Jersey. At the time, there were no free public schools in New Jersey, only private schools that cost money to attend. Clara thought this was an injustice for poor students. She started a free school that was open to anyone. The school quickly attracted hundreds of students. Clara hired more teachers, but the New Jersey school board didn't think a woman should run a school. They hired a man to be principal. Clara was deeply insulted. She felt she had no choice but to leave teaching. The Civil War. Clara moved to Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. She found a job in the U.S. Patent Office. She was good at her job and was quickly promoted once again. They were concerned about a woman holding an important government job. She was replaced by a man. This time, Clara didn't have time to find a new job. The country was about to be torn apart by war. The Civil War interrupted between the Northern Union and the Southern Confederacy in 1861. Washington, D.C. was right in the middle of the conflict, and wounded men poured into the city. Clara immediately decided to help. She started to she started by organizing medical supplies of hospitals. However, many soldiers were so badly hurt that they couldn't make it to a hospital. They needed the hospital to come to them. Clara wrote to the government asking for permission to go to the battlefield. The idea of women on the front of the lines was unheard of, but she wouldn't give up. Finally, she received a letter that let her go straight to the fight. Near the battlefields was makeshift hospitals called field hospitals where Clara found her calling. She braved gunfire to care for injured soldiers and few helpers and even fewer supplies. She went without sleep, tending to wounded soldiers by candlelight. A bullet tore even through her sleeve, grazing her arm, but she never left her post. She cared for Confederate soldiers, even though she was from the North, and believed strongly that slavery was wrong. Soldiers called her Angel of the Battlefield. The American Red Cross. After the war, Clara was exhausted. Her doctor advised her to rest, so she went to Europe. Even then, there, Clara's work was famous. In Switzerland, a group of leaders wanted to meet her. They're part of a new organization called the International Red Cross, which helped care for wounded and displaced people during wars, no matter what side they were on. The idea electrified Clara, and she immediately joined volunteers caring for soldiers in the France-Parisian War in France and Germany. There she was a well-supplied, well-staffed, and well-organized medical teams she could only have dreamed about during the Civil War. Clara vowed to start a similar Red Cross when she returned to the United States. In 1881, Clara founded the American Red Cross, talking to will of President. The United States was in a period of peace, but the American Red Cross was not an idol. Clara made sure the organization stocked food, tents, clothing, money, and medicals ahead of time, so it wouldn't have to scramble for supplies during an emergency. She led volunteers into disaster zones, helping people with homeless by wildfires and machine gun and flooding in the Mississippi River. In May 1889, a dam near Johnstown, Pennsylvania, suddenly burst. The wall of water swept away the top. Over 2,200 people died in one of the worst disasters in the United States ever known. Clara and her Red Cross workers were straight into a devastation. Clara stayed in Johnstown for 5 months, helping survivors rebuild their health and lives. The American Red Cross won the admiration of the whole nation. For years, Clara ran the American Red Cross. However, she saw fit. She used her own money and never kept many records. Before the government could renew the Red Cross's charter or the stale contract, however, it insisted that she made things more official. Clara refused to change her ways. In 1904, she resigned as president. Clara was 81 years old, but she wasn't done yet. She started the National First Aid Association of America, which was popular, the single-box first aid kit. The Red Cross today. Clara's work in the American Red Cross was the start of the modern humanitarian humanitarian aid. She expanded the role of the Red Cross to include natural disasters as well as war. Today, the Red Cross is often first organization on the scene of a hurricane, earthquake, or flood. They set up field hospitals to care for people who are hurt and sick. These organized donations and distribute food, clothing, tents, clean water, and medicine. Clara Barton believed that all people deserve health and dignity. Throughout her long and busy life, she showed how to care for others when they needed most. Today, 97 million volunteers, members, and staff in 187 nations following Clara Barton's footsteps.